does say 11 o'clock. Thank you very much. Okay, we have Facebook Live here. We have folks rolling in. I'll call the meeting to order. This is our work session in preparation for our first meeting in February on the 7th, which will be at 5:30 down in the boardroom. Our first item on the agenda is an update from Jennifer Gregory and Jeremy Murdoch of Retail Strategies, and I just left them down to partnership, so they should be rolling in here very shortly. So Cody, we're going to let you come up first.
All right.
We'll just make them wait since they're not here at 11. So Mr. Burnett is going to provide us with stormwater management amendments based on what we have experienced over the last number of years. So I'm pleased that he's been able to put something together that I think will be of interest and importance to us. So go ahead.
All right, good morning, Mayor Board. That's right. So I'm here to talk about the stormwater ordinance. I know everybody's as excited about it as I am, so y'all bear with me. But got a long way to go in a short amount of time to get there. But if you have questions, stop me. If not, I'll save some time at the end. So real quick history. We have had some type of ordinance for stormwater in place since 2006. And essentially this governs how much stormwater detention you provide on the property once you develop it, okay? It's been revised in 2010, and then in 2019 we had a major revision. So I think everybody here remembers that in 2019 we had historic flooding that year. We had about 90 inches of rain in a single year. And best that I can tell, that was the most rain we've had on record, at least in 130 years, because that's how far the data goes back. So following that, I think the administration, as well as the staff, and really the public at large, felt the need for us to do a better job managing stormwater. Okay? Knowing that we can't go back and fix every issue that we currently have, but at least on new development, we're doing the best job we can. So to that end, myself and Edward Kemp took a deep dive into stormwater management policies, and we produced an ordinance that I would consider to be very strong, very robust, and that's what the board adopted as a part of the UDC. I still stand behind that ordinance. I think it's a good policy. I hope there's things in there we enforce in perpetuity. But if you were to consider stormwater management on a spectrum, or a pendulum as it were, I think on the one side you have a very development-friendly, low cost to install, doesn't take up much space, but is also not very protective against flooding. And then on the other end of the pendulum you have a high level of protection, but very expensive to install, takes up quite a bit of space, and overall is discouraging to development. I think that the previous ordinance lent itself much more toward the development-friendly portion, and I think that the ordinance we travel under now is much more toward the protection into the spectrum. And so my opinion is that for a community where you're trying to grow, have infill development, remove some of your eyesore parcels, is that you really want to strike a balance between protecting your citizens from flooding while also encouraging your development. And so really what you want is for the pendulum to swing somewhere back in the middle where you've got a decent balance between the two, okay? So that's why I'm here today. That's the first step in this process. I think that I'll be back before future boards, maybe even this board as we learn more information. This is the first step in that direction, okay? So if I was in your seat, the first question I would have is, what are the reasons for this revision? What's the catalyst that's kind of brought this up? So this has really come from a sense that I've had talking to other engineers, other professionals, and really other municipalities, and it's that we have these detention ponds that go under quite a bit of scrutiny, quite a bit of calculations, review by the city. They're installed, and then we have these intense rain events, and they seem to be, more or less dry or detaining very little water. And so I think that that's missing the mark. I think that there should be detention in your ponds if that's what it's on for. And so an example of this is back in December, around the 13th, we had a rain event that was about 4 inches in 18 hours. That's about a 2-year event for Starkville. And so that's an event we require detention for. So you would expect some backup in some ponds. And so I went and observed a few of our ponds that we've had installed recently, and large and small, they seem to be very underutilized. Some of them were completely dry. And so I came back to the office and I cross-checked the data where those ponds were designed, and sure enough, they should have had substantially more water in those ponds than they did. Okay. Conversely, there's a separate pond I inspected under the old ordinance during the same rain event, and it was brimming full. And so went back to the office, checked it, sure enough, it had too much water in it. So I think that that shows the dichotomy between the old ordinance and the new ordinance, and then trying to find the balance somewhere in between. Okay. So the next thing I would ask would be, well, what is the issue with the ordinance that we have that may be causing some of this discrepancy, okay? I think there's a lot of speculation you can make, but what I have found in the time that I've been doing this is that there seems to potentially be some issues with the rainfall data. So what does that mean? So what I'm talking about when I say rainfall data, this is the technical term, which I'll spare you from, but it's when you say a 2-year, 10-year, 100-year event, what is that depth? Like what kind of rain are we talking about? Those are the values that I have some questions about, okay? I don't think that the values are wrong, but I think it rains differently than it used to. I think that rainfall changes in the way that it rains over big 100-year gaps, and I think that our ancestors had these really low, slow, long events. I think they actually had more rain per event than we get, but they were so much longer and slower. And so today we get these really high intensity, very quick, intense rains. So instead of cooking a Boston butt, we're cooking a steak. We get an inch of rain in 15 minutes, 3 inches in an hour. And so the problem with that is this is actually less volume of rain than we used to get. It's just a lot quicker. And so if we are designing these ponds to these older values, we very well may be oversizing ponds. So you say, well, this is an easy fix, right? Let's just change the 2, 10, and 100. Let's change what they are. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. These are numbers that come from hundreds of years of data. They take very complex algorithms and computer models and lots of engineers. So it would be unwise to just arbitrarily change your values. So they're actually determined by NOAA. This is a federal agency. This is kind of a federal caliber determination. And they have a product called Atlas 14. So you go in, type in your community, there's your storm events, okay? So what I'm telling you is municipalities don't make these up for themselves. We outsource this because this, it's very complicated. So I think that then the question is, well, what is the response to that? What is the response to knowing there's potentially an issue without maybe a direct way to fix it, okay? Well, that is the crux of the conversation. So the proposed changes, I think one example that you might account for that is instead of your upper level storm being 100-year, maybe you require 25 years your top end event. And in fact, that is what I'm proposing as a part of this change. Now, it's not quite so drastic as it may sound. You have to remember a 25-year event is not a quarter of a 100-year event. The numbers don't work that way. In fact, I'll show you the numbers. So this is what we require today, 2, 10, and 100. And then in the red is the volume or the inches of rain that the storms produce. So let's come down here to the top level storm we require. It's a 100-year event. That storm is 9.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. We require ponds to be built to that size event. Okay, it's a very, very large event. What I'm proposing is to keep the 2, keep the 10, and then replace the 100-year event with the 25-year event. Okay, this still provides 7.2 inches of rain protection. That's what you're going to size your ponds to. But it can make quite the impact on the size of the pond itself, dropping this down. And so to me, this feels like quite a bit of protection that you still have while also providing some development relief on these, huge ponds. Okay. Something else to consider is that if you were to look at peer communities, peer and non-peer communities alike across the nation, there are communities that require a 100-year event detention. But I have not found any that really require above and beyond that. So what you're requiring as high as anybody requires. You're requiring as high as your New Yorks and your Bostons and Raleighs and Atlantas and Orlandos. And so this is a list of peer communities. You see quite a few 25s, a couple of 50s. Oxford does require a 100-year event, but I think that they're raising their eyebrows potentially at these values as well. I think we may see some shifts in some of these requirements in the future. But if you just click down real quick and look, to me, 25 really looks like a good middle-of-the-road kind of storm event to require. And it's what I feel is an appropriate response to come back into that balance we're all kind of looking for. So this is the major revision that I'm making. I've got one more slide to hit, but this is a lot. So I was going to give the board a few minutes to ask questions.
Is there any possibility that the water is not getting conveyed properly to those detention ponds, Cody?
I think there is.
So that might be a component of it.
It is, yeah. And so you can require conveyance to be 100 or 500, but the cost is one element, and then also, the more conveyance, the larger they get. And sometimes it's physically not possible to convey more underground.
Okay.
So you do see the conveyance above ground sometimes.
Okay. And then my other question was, you hit on something that I think is very true, is that there seems to be shifts in weather patterns, and we seem to be dealing with more intense rains. So 7 inches over 24 hours is one thing, 7 inches over 4 hours is a whole other can of worms. Is there anything that would let you get comfortable with the adjusting for the intensity factor?
So there are ways to do this. So if I go back, you'll see that all these design storms, the 2, 10, 100, they have this 24-hour notation outside them. There's nothing magic about that. That's just how hundreds of years of rain has been measured. And so that is a very normal standard. You're seeing some now storm events where it's a 12-hour event, a 6-hour event. And so it manages the same flow rate, but the volume of rain is actually less. And so one of the revisions I'd actually considered is instead of a 24-hour storm, doing 2, 10, 100, and a 6-hour storm. But nobody's doing it. I mean, I don't think there's enough study. I think it's a good place that we look down the road at that could actually be a better fit for us. I don't think today is the day for that.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
And you had a...
Well, I can start with a comment. One of the, whether completely true or not, one of the perceptions that from the development community, I think we all heard that, is that we've got pretty strict stormwater ordinances compared to other places they make, other states. I mean, do you think that we could, with confidence, this is making it less of a requirement for the development community, correct? And we can tell a developer that a bit of a call that this is still, like I know you have the pendulum swinging, but this is something that you feel is less required of them as a developer?
I think that the size of the ponds will be smaller. I know they will based on this parameter. So if you look at just the land value itself, which we all know what that is, it would be a cost savings, certainly.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to turn to our former planning and zoning czar, Mike Brooks, just to get your perspective from having been on planning and zoning for so long.
Before you, okay, hold on that thought. You've got one more slide, and I think I know which one it is. Would you?
It may address some of these questions. I do. This is where I'll beat you down for 10 minutes with stormwater theory and tell you our goals.
Okay, well, no, that wasn't the one I was
gonna
thinking
get
about.
this.
The one I was talking about was the one that had how often this had happened over the last 100 years.
Yeah, so these are some slides I've got here toward the back. Let me jump to these. So there's a rain gauge in North Farm
That one.
that does have some caveats. It's probably got some error, but it's the best data that we have. And so the long and short is I took every single day from 1900, plotted it. This is what all this is. You see all these different days, and then these are the storm events. So what you can visually see is how often do we have this storm, this storm, this storm. So I love this graph. I'm proud of it, but it's not real helpful. So this is the tabular version of that. So what you can do is I'll be glad to give the board these. This is the storm event, 110 down to a 1-year event. This is how much rain you would get for that event. This is how many times it actually occurred with some reasonable, caveats to that data. This is what you'd expect statistically speaking. Okay, there's a little bit of voodoo in stormwater management, so you have to keep that in mind. This is not 100% airtight, but it's close. So
that was what I wanted. Let me go back to Jeffrey and Alderman Brooks here. So go ahead.
Can I end my question?
Sure.
I appreciate what you're doing, and I told you yesterday, I think you're the expert. I want to hear Mike weigh in, but
Sure.
Even with all these numbers, if your house is getting flooded, or your neighborhood's getting flooded, you don't care about the charts or the graphs. But anyway, that's just an observation. Mike?
Well, we've talked about it before. Stormwater's not a problem until it is, right?
That's right.
But I have heard numerous developers, some that I work with, some P&Z or whatever, complain about our orders being tougher than anybody else's.
Sure.
But again, I go back to that and I say, well, if you're on the hill, that's not a problem. But if you're down here, it does. But you feel pretty comfortable here with 25. I've heard other people talk about the 25 would be a lot less burdensome, a lot less costly on the developer side. And you mentioned land costs. We shrink the size of the ponds because land costs, then they get you another lot in your development.
Sure.
And I have also heard, people want to earwig you, but the same thing that you went out and looked at some of those detention ponds, and we've got these rain events, and they're practically dry. So maybe we have over-designed, but maybe we were under-designed to start with, and then we over-designed, and then we come back, and I think what you've done a big piece of work here, and I think that you're moving in the right direction, I think, for both us and our growth and the people that want to come in here and develop this property. And the other thing too, I was thinking about, we've developed a lot of this property and have these bigger ponds under this ordinance. So some of your infill stuff essentially might get taken care of with what the other guy's done next door.
Sure.
So, my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I think that a lot of times the focus becomes on some of the new development, but everything in Starkville has been developed just a 2-year event. I would be willing to bet that 90% of the calls we get, you never get. It's just years and years of no detention. It's really what we struggle with. Yeah.
Okay, go to your long-term.
So I'll hit this pretty quick. There's a couple of things I think we need to look at down the road if we're going to do a better job at this. The first is I think we need a really advanced collection system. We get rain events and we have no idea what we got. Was that a 2-year, a 10-year? So this is a rain gauge, but it's not just one you put in your yard. This is a professional grade. And I think that we need to know every time it rains what event we had. We need to be able to track it for years. And one way this is helpful is I know every alderman here gets concerns about drainage, and so when somebody calls with a concern, you can call me up and I can say, we had a 25-year event. It makes sense we have some problems. But if somebody calls you and says, hey, there's water in my house, and you call me up and I say, that was only a 2-year event, that's a problem. That helps filter out some of the noise, and you can objectively and scientifically know where to spend your time. So I think this is very important. And then the second thing that goes hand in hand with that is I think we really need to consider a citywide watershed study. This is where we hire a consultant that's an expert. They break your corporate limits into water basins, and then they're going to give ratings to these. So you know where it's really bad, where it's really good. This helps you plan on a big picture scale. Think about the Stark Road, Hospital Road project. We need to know on this side of the shovel, how can we start managing for stormwater? So this would help those kind of things. It helps you codify different storm requirements. So this really gets into having a custom requirement for where you are in town. So if you develop here, we know there's problems, structure flooding, a lot of issues, critical rating, 100-year event. But if you develop here, where there's no issues downstream, maybe there's undevelopable land, and we know there's no problems, then it makes more sense to do a 10-year event. But there's no way to do that without some kind of objective scientific data. You see this a lot in bigger progressive communities. And then the last thing I think is very obvious. It just provides us guidance on where to spend capital improvement money. The idea is if you have a critical basin, let's bring that up. So overall, we're more resilient and more resistance against flooding. So that's what I've got today.
Okay, all right, and thank you for doing this and for all the work associated with it, because I know it is, but you've been involved in stormwater for quite some time, so we appreciate the expertise. I've got Alderman Brooks has said he has a question, and I will circle through.
Just one about your rain gauge. Now do you have several of those?
I would like to. I would like to get one. It's what we're looking for before we spend a lot of money on it. I think having one here at City Hall that we can track and then build kind of a system across town. So you almost can triangulate what you had.
And it's not all expensive, so I've authorized him to go ahead and make that purchase.
If it weren't, of course, if it weren't to be over 5,000, we'd have to get quotes and get y'all to approve it. But we're researching it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Sismark.
Sure. Let's go back to that 2019 weekend of April 19th. It was because it's my husband's birthday and he was out of town and I was dealing with the water. So it's seared into my brain. Those were very intense rains. I almost have water in my house, and we've never had that problem. Is there a point at which there are events that are what I would call black swan events that you just can't plan for and correct for? You can't make us 100% safe all the time.
I think that you could argue a number, whatever it is. To me, a 100-year at 9.5 inches of rain in 24 hours is.
This was a lot of rain in like 4 hours or 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, and there were back-to-back rains that were heavy, and so ground was saturated. And then you get that next rain, that 9.4 inches. With the initial rain may not have been the problem, but the secondary rain comes just on the heels of it. And I frankly have not seen anything like that during my time in Starkville. So
Well, it was the most we've ever had. And in fact, with that 90 inches of rain over that year, there were a few months that had 0 precipitation, so it was less than that. I think April had the most of the year.
And July was second
Mm-hmm.
in terms of months. Alderman
We
Carter.
have access, I might be wrong, but was it NOAA that we allowed to come in inside the airport fence, and I know the guys coming in from Colorado last year, and they're, all that state-of-the-art stuff, is that rain gauge equipment too?
I don't think it was, and Rodney is
Yeah.
not here right now. I don't recall. I'd have to go back and research it.
It's down on the side of the road, but I don't
Yeah.
know if it had rain, maybe check into it.
Yeah, certainly. It's a good
Put a
thought.
station out there in the field, so.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I'll check with Rodney and see.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Great job.
All right. You guys, retail strategies, come give us a briefing, please.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Thank you all for letting us come speak to you for just a few minutes. I'm Jen Gregory. I'm the president of Downtown Strategies for our company, Retail Strategies. I know each of you, but since this is a public meeting, Jeremy Murdoch is our community development specialist. So just very briefly, we wanted to kind of recap our partnership and then give you some updated information over the last 6 months or so, what's been happening as it relates to retail. So in 2016, City of Starkville, along with Visitors and Convention Council and Oktibbeha County Economic Development Authority, partnered with Retail Strategies for national retail recruitment on the commercial corridors in our community. So that does not mean downtown, even though we are the downtown team. So it's a little bit confusing. You have a separate retail recruitment team assigned to you here at the city that is in Birmingham at our headquarters. We are kind of your communicators because we are here in Starkville. So that partnership, 2016, has gone up until today. It's been very successful by all accounts. And so just briefly wanted to kind of talk through the progression of it because early on, the first couple of years, really with any municipal partnership, you're doing a lot of data collection, you're doing a lot of discovery and making connections. Many of the retailers that we see here in Starkville, especially a lot of the new ones at Triangle Crossing, are brands that we started having conversations with in 2017. And it takes just that long for us to see kind of the fruits of that labor. We have, I think I went over it with you last time we were here 6 months ago or so, kind of our list of wins, if you will. It's over 20 retailers that have come to the community that you guys are receiving tax revenue off of, which is a really great thing. Where we are now, and we're going to talk through this a little bit, is that there's been a lot of success kind of back to back. And retailers follow retailers. They want to all be together. So everyone wants to be on Highway 12, which is great, but there's a lack of inventory, suitable inventory. And there are some vacancies which we're putting in front of retailers, but they're very, very, very specific about what they want, where they want to be, and what their site criteria is. So we're now having to get creative. Jeremy's going to kind of talk through some of our focus areas and our strategy for 2023, but just kind of wanted to begin with that while we've had a ton of success, looking back, Jeremy was actually the CVB chairman in 2016 when the partnership happened, and I was at the partnership. I don't think we could have dreamed that we would have the success that we have today as it relates to national retail and the revenue that's brought to the city. I think it's a huge element for the quality of life. We want to see that continue. But we're having to think about other areas and think about highest and best use instead of just filling a vacancy, which is exciting for us. Also, I think it's exciting. We are going to be opening a Starkville office for Retail Strategies in the hub that Mississippi State has right down here on University Drive. So really excited that our company has grown to the point where we are reinvesting back into the economy here in Starkville. So we're really proud of that and excited to continue to be your partner. So Jeremy's going to talk a little bit about our strategy, and then I'll talk briefly about some specific kind of uses that are interested in this market right now.
Because like Jen mentioned, you have a retail recruitment team back in Birmingham that's working every day behind the scenes to connect brands with Starkville and get this market in front of them. Just giving a quick update of where we are with Starkville, because like Jen said, a lot has changed over the past several years. Early on, it was how do we get Starkville in front of these brands, because just using census data and things like that, Starkville didn't jump off the page. So trying to get our data in front of them, tell a different story about Starkville. That was the first several years of the partnership. Now it's flipped where there's a ton of interest in this market. There's not a lot of available real estate that meet all that criteria. So that's the challenge we have now. So your retail recruitment team is really reworking and updating the strategy specifically for Starkville. So basically the three main points of that of where they are now is closing the retail gaps on Highway 12, because obviously that's where the most interest is right now, because that's our long-established commercial corridor. So really being specific on identifying what those specific gaps are and really trying to make targeted connections with specific sites, specific developers, specific brands. So being very hyper-focused on those specific gaps. Looking at other corridors, and obviously we know as locals, 389, 182, 25, we see the potential of that here as locals. Making that case to brands is what they're trying to do, because that's going to be a more targeted approach, because right now we know the potential of North Star and Cornerstone and those types of things, but until there's a lot of actual activity happening at those facilities, it's just kind of an early sell on some of those. 182, once that construction's done, there's a lot of things on the horizon, but trying to make those pitches right now is difficult. So they're going to be very targeted on connecting the dots with opportunities on those corridors and putting together a specific strategy for those, because that's a very different approach than Highway 12, right? I think we all understand that. And then one opportunity that the team is going to pursue, which might be a big vision right now, but they feel like there's some opportunity with that, is looking at entertainment groups, looking at, you think of bowling alley, laser tag, those types of things, trying to find, probably not those big brands that you would think of, but maybe that next level down that would look at this size of a market. They feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. It's just trying to make those connections. And again, trying to find specific properties for them to go in, because that's the biggest challenge right now. Looking ahead at next steps, the team's planning on having a visit here in the next few months. They came back in November to do kind of a boots on the ground, looking at property, looking at what has changed and updating the database there. But they're looking at the next few months coming over here. And they really want to make the most of that visit. We're going to work with the partnership on this. But I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for people that might be interested in pursuing being a franchisee. Maybe there's some local property owners that have underutilized property. Maybe they're sitting on some property and they don't realize. I feel like there's a lot of local people that don't realize the true demand that there is right now in Starkville. So how do we get in front of those? They may not have it listed with a real estate agent or something. They're just sitting on it, waiting on somebody to come to them. So if we could have a lunch and learn or some sort of workshop that's very targeted at those individuals to let them know the current situation, that there is tremendous need and demand for property in Starkville. So they want to host some sort of session when they're here for that in the coming months. And then finally, a big part of our partnership is obviously representing Starkville at these big ICSC conferences throughout the year. The biggest ones for Starkville, we just had the Red River one in Dallas that we were representing Starkville to try and make connections with all these different brands. Atlanta is obviously another big one for the Southeast. And then the biggest one of the year, biggest one in the world, is in Las Vegas in May that we'll be representing you. That team will be representing Starkville at that session, trying to make these connections and get this market in front of these brands. So that's where the retail recruitment team is for 2023, kind of updating that plan, recruitment plan, and those plans for the next few months.
Thank you. And just a couple of updates on uses. Obviously, with it being a public meeting, we can't say specific brands that are interested in the area, but we did actually have a site visit here 2 days ago by a fast food restaurant that is interested in the area, looking at some property and looking at the market in general. I'm sure you guys, as city leaders, hear a lot from constituents of retailers that they want, things I see on your Twitter feeds all the time, and I choose not to comment, but there's obviously everyone has their specific choices. Some of those that I have seen on Twitter are ones that we are actively working with. Others are not going to come here for a long time or maybe ever. But you probably hear from your constituents all the time, why do we keep getting more food? Do we really need another chicken restaurant? Do we really need another fast food restaurant? I think it's important to note that when we look at what is expanding, what types of businesses are opening new stores, food is a big one, and convenience food. I think through the pandemic, we learned that convenience is king, and so you're starting to see restaurants. I know in our update last time we talked about Chipotle, which is now open. All of their new stores has to have a Chipotle lane, which is kind of the pickup lane. Nukes, all the new concepts are going to have a drive-through. So many restaurants are trying to meet consumers where they are, and we're all really busy. And so in terms of food, convenience is a huge part of that. So food is continuing to expand. Grocery also, and hardware, and we're seeing some of that under construction right now, things that have just opened. But certainly food dominates where the interest is right now. Also another would be apparel. I think we can all realize that there are lots of gaps in terms of apparel. We have some great boutiques here on Main Street, a new apparel store at Triangle Crossing, but there are a lot of people here that need clothes, and so there's definitely a gap there that we are looking to fill. And then also another one is kind of a gift and lifestyle user that is looking for a site that has been to this market multiple times, has looked at several pieces of property. The balance always is making it pencil, right? It is a deal. These people have to make money. Jeremy mentioned the demand is there, but sometimes property owners overvalue their property, and these retailers, when they choose their expansion patterns, they say, we are going to open 10 stores in the Southeast. They don't care if that's in Mississippi or Alabama. They're going to find a community that meets their needs and a piece of real estate that meets their criteria. And so we are always working to bring that demand to willing property owners, but we don't want to overemphasize the demand, and then those property owners jack up the prices. The retailers will just go somewhere else. So it's always a balance, but a lot of excitement, a lot of attention in the market, and we're really excited about kind of the future. What questions can we answer?
Well, up 389, we've talked about this, but just in terms of being in a public space,
Yes.
It's tough for somebody to be the first one going somewhere. But we have expectations associated with North Star and growth and 182 being improved, that all of that will then begin to flow up. Is that accurately stated?
That is accurate. And so we've actually worked with some national brands on the 182 corridor. One of them actually did a feasibility study to see if opening a second location would cannibalize their first store. So there is interest, but somebody has to be the first. And when we say the first, obviously there's a Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, which that is a popular expanding brand as well on 182, but I know we all think that there could be more food there on that corridor, and certainly on 389 as well. As it relates to North Star and Cornerstone, again, these brands, they don't take risks because they don't have to. They know what demographics they have to have. They know what real estate they need. And so they are going to wait until the data supports their needs. So Cornerstone, as soon as all of our kids are playing baseball there this summer and this fall, that's going to help. As soon as North Star, they're having successes, as soon as that happens more and there are people there, that's going to help that as well. But they are not going to do us any favors, of course. They have to wait for the data to support that. And we always say retail follows rooftops, retail follows people. So when we see high collections of people where people live and where they work, that's where the retail clusters, and I think we've seen that.
And have you seen an increased interest over the last, say, 6 months to a year? And I only ask that because of the aluminum plant announcement, for example. That's your 1,000 people supposedly employment would generate, and I fully expect them all to want to live in Starkville. Of course I do. So,
Yes.
but all those things, I think probably would generate some interest. But have you seen an uptick based on anything tangible?
I would not say necessarily relating to that, only because the uptick, it's already there. Like, people
Okay.
want to be here. We don't have to do a lot to sell them right now. We have to find them the right site. But also in our portfolio reviews, which Jeremy mentioned, our conference representation, when we go to Dallas, we set up, we're not there just at a booth hanging out. We have targeted meetings that we have set up to show our client communities and that specific piece of real estate to these brands. And so if they're ever on the fence, there was one that we had about a year ago that wasn't quite sure if this market was for them, then we can pull out those news releases and say 1,000 people are coming here. There have been all these new residential growth, population expected to grow. Cornerstone Park. That helps tip the scale a little bit, but we haven't had to do a lot of arm twisting lately. But why I think you need us and why this partnership is helpful, and us, I don't mean Jeremy and I, but our team, is the real estate component. They're interested in this market, but if they don't have that right site, they will go somewhere else. And that's where our real estate team really analyzes and looks at and communicates with a number of property owners in this community to try to make certain pieces fit for them.
I have one last question, then I'll pass it around the room. Who's going to man the office?
We will.
Okay, cool.
Plus an intern from Mississippi State University that we're thrilled to have. We're waiting on furniture, waiting on the space to get furnished.
Supply chain has it right now.
Yes, we are.
We want to be there yesterday.
Okay,
So
cool. Okay, you can say it out loud. East Center manages that space.
yes,
On
So,
Jeffrey hooked us up.
yeah,
That's right, that's
That's
right.
right. That was my question. All right.
It was not a retail, an office strategy.
That's right. That's right.
That's great.
Partnership.
That's great. Okay, all right, so questions? Anyone?
Well, I've got a couple
On the
comments.
Carver.
One, I say as elected officials, we always feel, I would never really complain about the number of restaurants that come. I think the market will neutralize itself, and if they're making, it seems like when nobody goes, is that a business, and make a business? So if they're making money, I'm for it. Second thing is, I was gonna ask y'all, just a public comment, we took a lot of risk as elected officials and policymakers with Cornerstone and North Star, so I'll just encourage you to continue to promote those. Not disheartening at a time, but there's some major projects happening in Lowndes County. It may just be over time, but we see that our infield comes from Lowndes County, which is fine. We get a ton of people that work at the steel mill that live here. I've heard 50-60% of times choose to live in Oklahoma County, who work in Lowndes County. The last thing I was asking, and this may just be for you too, been a while, but is any movement? Most of my comments I hear are when are we going to get some entertainment for young kids, and I think if you got young kids, you're talking 2 to 14, 18 years old. So bowling alleys, laser tag, I know those are big investments. I have 2 or 3 people over my last 10 years that have tried it. We really got deep into the issues, and bowling lanes, and especially start adding alcohol. The insurance costs sometimes can be extravagant. But has there been any movement on the pine acres relocating, or all that dead in the water?
Well, I don't know that it's dead, but there hasn't been any movement that I've been made aware of.
No, it's not dead, but just
Good job.
still.
Yeah.
Y'all hear that too. I mean, I guess pursue anything. I always hear, I guess, one thing is that we don't have enough for the young kids to do. It's been a lot of rainy days the last 3 or 4 days. Kids look for anything to get out. Just from a sports standpoint, the sportsplex gets overly utilized. It's something for the kids to do on a rainy day. So y'all know that. Y'all got young kids. But do y'all see anything in the future that?
That's one of the strategies that they're going to start trying to put a plan together for, because they think there's potential here. Is just how do you tell that story? And like you said, I mean, some of this stuff is very expensive to undertake. So how do you put that story in front of them that they feel confident making that?
I guess
that jump?
the last question people ask, do y'all factor in the college students from a market analysis standpoint? It's obviously for the town, 25,000. That's not accurate, because we've got 30+ weekends a year special events. I think if you had something for entertainment value, like a bowling alley, I think you'd get a lot more use than just the local and the college kids. But I mean, do y'all factor in I know when last time you told us our meeting, y'all started being able to factor in
Cell phone activity. So basically when we run the data, the cool thing is now we're not looking at census. I mean, that's a layer in the data, but all of our phones have location services. Please turn them on because we buy that data. But if you do have your location services turned on and you go into Kroger and you get a Weather Channel notification and you open that, it tracks your location there. And then when you go to the Sportsplex, and then when I can't say that that this is Alderman Carver's info, but it aggregates and it helps us quantify. That was when we first hired Retail Strategies. The biggest problem, and I say we when I was a teammate of yours, we didn't have a way to quantify the college students, and we felt like we were getting missed out on everything. Because of our company invests about $250,000 a year in data to be able to have the most cutting edge way to quantify commerce, basically.
any movement ever, or if you could say a baseball, softball training facility, indoor training? I would say personally, if I had the time, the funds to do it, that would be moneymakers?
So it's really,
Years?
I'm glad you brought that up because when you asked about entertainment, I think the first thing is that we saw entertainment slow down significantly during the pandemic. Movies, bowling, anything indoor with people, they lost a ton of money. So in terms of their expansion patterns, national brands, zilch, they're starting to pick back up a little bit. But like Jeremy said, Topgolf, for example, they have to have a massive trade area and the city has to give them 5 acres of land. No questions asked. That is a minimum. They're not looking at our market, so we can all, we don't have to worry about that right now. But there are some kind of second tier entertainment. I was in South Carolina last week, and there was an individual that bought a warehouse downtown and retrofit it for batting cages where you buy your pass online, you scan in. So very limited overhead. So you're starting to see some entrepreneurs kind of take advantage of some of the technology that allows the overhead to be minimal. You don't have to have people in there setting up and checking people in. So we're bringing the national brands here, but we're happy to share our data at any point with any local entrepreneur. And we do that a lot through our partnership with the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. So if any of you have entrepreneurs, several of you have referred them over to us that we've had calls with to share our data. But it's promising. It's just access to capital is very, very slow right now, and especially with the economy. That is kind of the theme of 2023. So we're looking at well-capitalized companies right now for expansion.
Anything else? All right, anyone else? Questions? No?
Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank you
guys.
all so
We'll look
much.
forward to seeing y'all on Main Street from time to time.
Absolutely, yes.
That's
Come
exciting.
see us. Come see us. Thank you.
All right, nice. Okay, next item on the agenda, before we get to the agenda, is an update on the potential for Starkville recycling that Alderman Rupp has put something together.
Well, with a lot of help.
With a lot of help, yes. I'm
Webb
sorry,
and
yes.
Sandra and Chris, we spent the last couple of weeks trying to put some real numbers to what it costs here in the city. We also looked at different tiers for pricing, 6, 15, 20, and then how many households it would take in each tier to service the cost of recycling. I've emailed that to you all. I have hard copies here if anyone has any questions.
Alderman Carter.
I saw all the different tiers, and I guess mine were there, but like total operating cost for 136,000 or something for the whole year. Is that? I mean, I guess that's an act. Is that right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, if you have faith in your
Yeah.
finance guy, your budget chair, and your department head, we think that's a fairly realistic.
That's as bare bones
Yeah.
as we can get.
It's a low number.
It is a low number.
What does that entail? What kind of
It's-
service is that?
Well,
That's twice a month.
No, I got
One's
it.
cardboard, the other one's
Is
over
that,
cans,
was that the
paper
garbage
bags.
trucks, or is that the,
That's
what?
garbage trucks.
Okay.
let me have the other one, so I can tell.
I've got it, okay.
No, I'm talking about Alderman Vaughn.
Chris designed a program that was as bare bones as it could be, so that to minimize cost to the extent it could. And then we went back and filled in the blanks to run 2 garbage trucks. The driver will cost this much, the gas and oil that much, and all of that. So
Is that taking our stuff direct to
that
Columbus?
takes it directly to Columbus. And that, by taking it directly to Columbus, it seems like that incurs a cost here, but it actually eliminates a
Sorting.
couple of costs. It eliminates the labor affiliated with stock sorting and that sort of thing. It eliminates the rental fees for bins, so that if they're not ready to come pick it up on the day, we get it off the garbage truck so it can be put back into use for garbage pickup subsequent day. It actually reduces their acceptance fee by doing cardboard one day, tin cans and paper and that sort of thing another day. They won't charge us for taking the cardboard because there is a market for that. The other, they will charge us an acceptance fee for taking it.
Now, if we do this, and we're taking it to them, we're basically becoming sort of kind of what Mississippi State's doing. They're picking up from Mississippi State, but they're handling Mississippi State stuff, which includes plastics, and they sort it at their facility. Now, does that cost include if we added 1 or 2 plastics and put?
We didn't include any plastics, and so
Would that make the fees go up? You know?
I'm sure it would, because they've told me repeatedly through the years that there's a very limited market for plastic. that they cannot guarantee us that our plastic will get recycled. They'll pick it up, they'll collect it, but they cannot guarantee that it will get recycled. As a matter of fact, there's a 70 to 80% chance that it will not get recycled, that it will ultimately get bundled and taken to another landfill. So we have paid an additional cost, but not done anything to ensure that that product ultimately gets recycled.
You mean, you're saying that they will, they'll bale it and then just carry it to landfill?
They'll somehow get it.
'Cause I was at their facility. in
They'll
Columbus.
store it for a period of time, but they can't store
Bale
it
and then
forever.
carry it somewhere. That's it. Because when I visited their facility in Columbus, they had some plastics bale. They'd been there a while. He said we wait for the market to get better to sell it. But he didn't, the gentleman I talked to didn't mention that was just going to go to landfill.
I've been told, and not by the people at West Pro, but I've been told that they hold it for about 3 months. And then because they have more coming, it's that snake swallowing something. You can only hold so much of it before you've got to get rid of what you did have. And there's, a couple of years ago, and I don't know what the market is currently, but a couple of years ago, there was one place in Alabama that purchased plastic, and because there was one place in a fairly large geographic area, they had their pick of the litter in terms of whose plastic they wanted, and so selling it was difficult. It had to be clean, it had to be certain grades, and it just became more difficult. And one of the things that we read over and over and over, if you read a bunch of recycling stuff, is that while we would all like to think that the plastic is getting recycled, that in reality, about 10% of plastic gets recycled.
Well, and part of it
It's
is
just
that-
not, it's not.
It's so
That's considering all plastics.
That's considering all
If you
plastics.
take high grade, what they wanted to, what they consider the better grade, now there's a high percentage of that's being recycled and reutilized.
And the more you add, anything you add is going to drive the cost up. Anything that can contribute to contamination, I think I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Smiley, one of his biggest concerns is that we don't want to get to a situation where there's contamination and we start getting charged contamination fees. So that was another reason to separate the cardboard, tin cans, and paper, was that you could control for contamination of the cardboard better that way than by mixing those products. But as much as I'd like to think that everybody is going to clean their products, put them out there properly, not throw that water bottle in there, do all the things that they're supposed to, the more opportunities you give for something to go wrong, the more likely it is to go wrong.
But you're saying that people that sign up for curbside recycling will be a different class of recycler from the people that come to the.
They may be.
But I mean, I'm just saying, Mr. Smiley, we have a problem with he sees a different problem with contamination right now.
No, sir. The difference with contamination out on the road would be we don't have a different method where we can collect it. So whatever goes in the truck, we can't streamline it out there on the side of the road. On the drop-off facility, we can actually, if they do bring contamination, we can go in there and pull it out. But once we load it at the road, it's going in the truck, and then we don't have that option. We just got to take it straight on.
If you have recycling, this cardboard is broken down, and the cans and the papers in one of those 18-gallon things, wouldn't we be able to tell if somebody had garbage and that's one of those, and something was trying to pass off garbage to our recycling, and something, if it's out, people put it out curbside in that type of setup?
You can and you can't, because the difference is about us not having the other options of the trucks. When you put it in the truck, it can be clean, but when you put it all together, you can contaminate it by some people don't actually rinse it all the way out. You still have some juice left. So that clean paper you put in there, the juice and stuff will actually wet it up and then it'll get contaminated.
But historically, when I've talked to people, when they say contamination, they're not talking about liquid or the inside of a little tomato paste on the inside of a tomato can. They're talking about garbage. They're talking about somebody putting a sack of garbage in a recycling that mixes with recycling. That's what I thought of when I thought about contamination.
That's correct also, but I'm looking at it from the other side. When you look at these haulers that's gonna pick it up, any way that they can justify that it's contaminated, I've seen it on both sides from the previous program. They'll start with the contamination fees. And that's automatic with some. It can be as small as 100 or it can be 300. But the contamination fees will come because we're at the mercy of them. When you take it straight to them, when you leave out the option where you have it in-house, you can't control it. So now it's in argument pretty much between me and that company, and that's just gonna go back and forth. I see it on both sides.
So what you're saying is that with our people that pick up curbside, they won't be able to discern between what's contaminated and what's not contaminated?
It's not enough time out there on the road. There's no way. You can, but now you're talking about, it will take hours. It ain't that it can't be done, but it's just that they won't allow it.
All right, this is an update. Yes, ma'am.
And I would still like to ask if there's board interest in submitting a request for proposals for an outside company to do curbside recycling. I've been told that there might be some response to that. We might not like the response, but that there might be a proposal that would be given to us if we requested a proposal. The thing that does, as far as I'm concerned, is it allows us to get into the business much more quickly. And it doesn't interrupt the current work that's happening at environmental services and sanitation. So the work that they're doing with litter pickup, the work that they're doing with cleaning up trucks and low-level maintenance on the trucks that will go by the wayside if they divert those resources, those people, to recycling can continue. And in the long term, that saves us money on repairs and maintenance and that sort of thing. But a request for proposal is low-hanging fruit as far as I'm concerned. If we don't get any, it tells us something. If we do get any, it tells us something. And it allows us to have an option there that's easy to get into.
It's an easy thing to do. It's a no harm, no foul. The cost would be just associated with the advertisement, which is basically minimal, so.
But when I talked to the lady who was head of environmental services at Oxford, I mean, I probed her pretty good about, contamination of curbside. She said they just didn't have a significant problem. They're smiling with contamination with their curbside versus what people bring to drop-off sites. Unmanned drop-off sites would be a much greater thing.
And we factored in a very minimal cost for contamination fees.
Right. All right, let me ask you this: what would if we added $1 to our residential garbage fee? Right now, it's what with everything? It's 18 what?
It's $16.25.
But I mean, when all told, 17 what?
$1.50 of that is escrowed for the landfill project that we have going on.
So $17.
$16.25.
$16 we charge. If we added $1 per month per household, we would take in $144,000 in a year's time, and we would cover all that cost, that $137,000 cost, with a little bit, not much extra, but with a little bit left over. I mean, I was looking yesterday because I noticed that Jeffrey's study he did for us last year on garbage and recycling stuff, MBA student stuff, looked at some cities in our part of the South, and I just looked at what we're doing in Mississippi, who's recycling, what they're charging. Original charges, they get once a week. They garbage twice a week, recycling once a week, $19.50, what they charge. Clinton, former hometown, has garbage twice a week, recycling once a week, $25. Oxford is twice a week garbage, once per week curbside on recycling, $22. Tupelo is $17.50. Waste Management picks it up there, but it's twice garbage, once recycling. Hattiesburg is $17 per week, which includes twice pickup garbage and once recycling. And Gulfport is $17 per month, and theirs is 2 times per week garbage, 1 time per week thing. So that average is about $19.50, a little over $19.50. And I know we talk about Avalon tax being in the average on garbage and fee rates and stuff like that. We'd be a little bit below average in that. We would be able to take this money and allow people, if we go to $15 a month, you're going to cut out a whole class of people that can't afford $15 a month for recycling. If we do this, that's 24 trips to somebody's house per year. That's 50 cents a trip for somebody to come by with a truck and pick up the recycling. It generates $144,000 a year, which will cover the cost of our trucks, cover the cost of our overhead, cover the cost of our tipping fees or whatever at Waste Pro. It would be something we could do, and we could support this program. And I would ask the board to at least consider that based on
Your proposal was $1 a month, whether they
say about across the board increase.
And this is based just on minimum customer.
And may I say, you raise an interesting point with the rate structure and how far behind we are, most cities, in what we charge for these services. And we see that play out in the fact that particular department has no working capital. They could not buy a garbage truck right now and pay for it if they wanted to.
You mean other cities?
No,
our
we cannot.
cities.
We cannot. We have to finance equipment. And so I think there are some basic services that we need to take a hard look at in terms of rate structure before we start adding them and going, this is going to cover everything that we need to do. We've got that 5% PERS increase that's rolling our way next year that will potentially impact rates. There's several things out there that we need to take a look at before we just say $1 a month is going to cover this for the entire
But
city.
according to your numbers, it does.
For you would need to double my numbers, Alderman Beatty, because that assumes that we will have 2 trucks twice a month. And if you go to 4 routes, well, you'd have to quadruple them. We would go from 2 trucks twice a month, so 4 routes. You would go at least to 4 trucks twice a month, so 8 routes. So you need to double my numbers.
You're saying that you based your numbers on breaking at 800 or something like that, right?
Well, Chris.
That's where the break is.
Chris thought that, given the interest that we've had in the past, that he could manage this with 2 routes run through the city. Unfortunately, when you map out who recycles, there's somebody all over the city that recycles, and we've now added the annex territory. So there's he's going to have to run, he can't do it all in 1 route. He's going to have to run 2 routes. He currently runs 4 routes for garbage pickup. So we went with 2 routes. If you're charging everybody and everybody gets to put their recycling out at that point, then you start to run into the contamination issues again. And
I don't think we're going to have 12,000 people recycling. I mean, that's $1. That's not, if you were charging $5 a head, you'd have people, use it or lose it kind of thing. Would utilize just because they're paying $5 for $1. That's $12 a year. A mill, $150,000 house, primary house, getting homestead at 10% assessment rate. That's $15 a year for 1 meal, which is less than 1 meal per year. $1, which equates to $12 per year for 1 customer, less than 50 cents per trip by. But still, a lot of people are not going to just recycle truck, breaking out cardboard truck. And if we had 2,000 households, we probably could. I mean, I don't know how many routes that is, Mr. Smiley, but that's. Do we still handle that with 2 trucks?
The obligation would be, we'd have to go all over town just like you do your entire, whether you know it or not, you'd still have to go all over town to make sure you picked up what was put out.
You do realize that we tout ourselves as a progressive college. Lynn, you do? And so does Chamber of Commerce and everybody else. And this is one of the things that defines a progressive city, not just here in other states too, but certainly in our state. There are towns our size, Mississippi, that do not recycle. Brandon doesn't recycle. Pearl doesn't recycle. Vicksburg doesn't recycle. Those kind of places don't recycle. They're not, but they're not models. They're not examples of stands to emulate. Clinton is one of them that is, and so is Richmond. They're one of them that is. And I'm sorry.
May I, before we go too far down the softer issues, let's kind of look back to the program that Chris developed. That was a bare bones program that came to that number that we've been talking about. I would suggest that you talk to some recyclers, because I've been told by some recyclers that won't work for them. They want twice a month pickup for everything. So you've gone from doubling to possibly quadrupling the cost there. So I think probably the first thing to do would be vet whether or not that's a program that's acceptable to people who would sign up for it, or who would
Except if we put on a dollar.
participate in it. So that would be that. The other would be, I think it's time to make a decision. If you want to bring forward something with a rate increase that is across the board to everybody in the city, bring it to the board and let us vote it up or down. Bring it to the board and let us vote up or down. Make sure you have a good number, because this was.
Well, I'm using
this is a very
I'm
bare.
you're the financial person. I'm using
It's a
numbers.
very bare bones number.
But I know, but I'm still going on the financial
I'm telling
person.
you, if it increases at all, those numbers go up. And by not requiring people to opt into a program, you are probably going to have more people who put stuff out there, contaminated or otherwise.
I mean.
So, but at the same time, can we concurrently do a request for a proposal from people who are in this business and see what sort of response we get?
Our request for proposal was for commercial.
Commercial, and I've drafted one for curbside recycling.
And when it comes back to $15 per month, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. We won't do it, because there won't be enough people sign up for $15 a month. The people that pay an extra $1 a month and get a truck comes by their house twice a month can recycle. If we go to $10 or $15 a month for recycling, people are not going to sign up for it, and y'all know that. You know that. You know that's a death nail in recycling.
Other question. If we feel that they're not gonna sign up for it, why would we make all the citizens pay $1 if the ones that want it won't sign up for it? Why would you make everybody pay for it? The ones that they don't want to pay $15. So why would we penalize everybody? Because if they want it, they'll pay $15.
Well, Clinton just went up 65% on their garbage rates. They went up from $16 or $17 to $25. And which includes recycling. Of course, that's garbage, and people ain't gonna not get garbage. But no, I don't know how much pushback they probably got some pushback being down there, but they announced it and implemented it, and people paying it, and then I guess people didn't want the service cut back, so they still get 2 days per week garbage and 1 recycling. But we talking about $1 a month. We're not talking about some exorbitant amount of money. We talking about, and I know $1's $1, but that's $12 a year. For people to have somebody come by their house twice a month and pick up their recycling, I can't believe it's $1 a month.
Well, let's
That's 50 cents.
provide that option for the board to vote on it. So if we want to do that, then we can put it on the agenda. We can put your RFP on the agenda, and we can put it out there for a decision.
May I say something else? We have a project down the hill that we've got a mill tax committed to right now. I know that wasn't your project. You inherited that. The bill grant.
No, I didn't inherit that.
Okay,
It's my project,
all right.
or our project.
But we have it for those in the room and the board that done wrong. We have committed $1 million tax to the debt service, our part, of the bill grant for I don't know how long when we issued the bonds on thing yet, have we? Or have we? Okay, we'll have. I did a little arithmetic. And $3 million of service, $1 million will serve the debt. This is a straight amortization stuff, so it's not the same as a bond thing, but it's rough and roughly correct on that. That $300,000 of service, $3 million over 15 years, and we got projects coming that's going to be back up on this hill. In places where we're going to have local debt on that. We're not going to fund stuff, and if you think we're going to fund stuff 100%, we're not going to do that. And whatever's left over, we're going to have to bond out. And that is going to be through the form of general obligation bonding. And general obligation bonding is money that's paid for and secured through the general revenue, general budget for the city of Starkville. And so we're going to be committing ourselves to bond debt and millage rate increases, Alderman Vaughn, for stuff up here that we've already approved and is on track and we're doing. This is $1 per month. It's less than one of those mills, and it gives people an opportunity to do curbside recycling. Put it in perspective. And some of this stuff up here may be more than 1 mill. And so I just saying, well, we pay for what we afford what we want, and we pay for what we want to pay for. But this is something progressive for our city. It's not going to cost an individual or us as a city an arm and a leg. And there again, I think
You've made your case all the way.
I know.
You continue to make the same case.
And I still have the floor for 10 seconds.
Well,
more.
actually, this is kind of a time for us to move it along.
Well,
Okay?
it appears, again, I'll say this again, that we don't, this something reasonable like this, we're looking for a way not to do curbside.
Well, you had a lot of work that was done by others who were trying to be helpful.
And I just did my analysis off the work that was done by others.
And so that's the reason to put it forward. So if you want to put it forward at the next board meeting, or at the board meeting on the 21st, that'd be great.
And Mayor, I'm gonna have to go. Hayes is playing in basketball games. They win today. They go to state tournament. And so
Awesome.
Corinth and JV basketball.
Good luck.
There you go.
Good luck.
I've got student presentations. Alderman Vaughn, you've got my proxy, whatever you want to do.
Go.
On what?
No, so we're choosing agenda items. Choosing agenda items. All right. Mr. Huskisson, are you still on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we've got 2 sets of minutes here. Have you vetted them and Ms. Harden has gotten them?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. Consent for agendas? All right, consent for minutes. Thank you, sorry about that. Mayor's comments. I don't know that I've got something, but I'm sure we will by the time it rolls around. So, and any board comments anybody wants? We don't have any introductions, I believe. Where's Mr.? Okay, now it's hiding in the back. We don't have any introductions, correct? Okay, all right, thank you. Citizens' comments, we hopefully will have some. Public appearances, none, but we have a slew of public hearings. We have the second public hearing on amending the Section 14 Utilities and Municipal Code. Mr. Kemp, anything you wish to share with us beyond what we have?
Nothing new from the last meeting.
Okay, all right, so this will be an opportunity for consideration of those amendments to the Utilities, Section 14. We'll be having our first public hearing on amending the Unified Development Code. Mr. Haviland.
Yes, this update is going to include 4 sections, Section 13, 16, 17, and 18. In Section 13, it's adding small cell communication facilities. These are the small 5G communication antennas and their supported equipment. So it's regulated and based on inside the right-of-way or outside the right-of-way, and it's mainly treating the aesthetics outside the right-of-way. Inside the right-of-way, it's aesthetics, and then also whether or not the poles and the equipment can actually be supported. The next one is in section 16.2. That is an update to the sound and noise ordinance. We've had some issues with the current one. It just doesn't capture some of the negative impacts from sound, and it makes it hard to enforce by the way of measurement. So what we're proposing is we're changing those limits of what's captured, but we're given 2 options to capture. One would be outside the residence with a sound meter based on the time of day, the hour, and the day of the week. The other one is inside the home or the residential dwelling, and whether it is plainly audible by either the code enforcement officer or the police officer. And either one of those, it's above the limits, would be a violation that would just be treated as a regular nuisance. Stormwater is the other ones in 16, which Cody has already gone over that. 17 is building, but I'm going to just throw that in there. They are adding a permit requirement for any roofing project over 10,000 and a permit requirement for any accessory structure within a floodplain, which both of those are part of the building code and part of FEMA's requirements. So it's just something that needed to be added in there. And then section 18 is just, of course, adding the definitions that are associated with the small cell facility update or addition, and then the update of the sound and noise.
Okay, all right, well, we will have that public hearing when, the first public hearing this next board meeting.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll have another one after that. The public hearings ahead of us are the parcel numbers that we, on January the 3rd, our first meeting of the year, had denoted as calling for the public hearing on 327 Lafayette Street and 111 Roosevelt. And if you will notice, or remember, we had 3 properties. One of those properties has been cleaned up. It's been demolished and the lot's cleaned. So little success in that regard. So these remaining 2 parcels will be public hearing and consideration at that point in time. So, under mayor's business, we have a property that was split as a part of our annexation. And the gentleman who owns 755 Cambridge Drive has half of his house and a percentage of his lot in the city, and the other half of his house, pretty much, and the remainder of his lot is in the county. And I am asking, by virtue of Mr. Morgan's request, that we authorize him to tax it to the proportion that's in the city and the proportion that's in the county. And that seems like the fair structure on that. So that's what that is, that's what that's listed to do, and the information is in the packet. It shows the percentage, it's 28 and 43%, and right now I can't remember which is what, or 23 and 48%. I think 48% of the house is in the city and 23% of the lot is in the city. And so trying to structure that, it's numbers. But Mr. Morgan is actually charged with doing that, but he said he wanted a board order so that he was authorized by this board that he could make that discernment himself.
He does have the authority to do that.
He has the
whether we
authority.
do it or not. He
Yes.
just would like us to.
Yes, give him a board order that rather than the entire PIN number, which is what he's using, then we can authorize him by virtue of the percentage. I've talked to Mr. Slaughter, who did our annexation, and he said this is not unheard of, that it's happened in many places around the state, and that the tax assessor has that authority if he chooses to exercise it, so we're going to give him the opportunity to make that choice. So
what is because I've looked at this, so what is the individual that owns the property? Has he decided he wants to be, because he goes right through the middle of his house, does he want to be in the city and get city services, or has he decided he'd rather be in the county?
he doesn't much have that choice because he's in the city. Half of it's in the city. And it's not just like you're going to de-annex that half a piece of property. So what I have asked him to do is, because I talked to Kristen Campanella, who is our 911 operator, and she said they will respond to however the homeowner wants them to respond. The reality is if he calls 911, it's going to look like it's in the county and the city. I feel sure our fire department will respond, and I feel sure our police will respond as well. So he may get sheriff and police, and he may double up.
I guess I misspoke when I said, does he want to be in the city? What I meant was, does he want to get these city services? Does he want to?
No, he said he'd be happy not to be in the city,
okay.
But that's not an option through this methodology. The best relief I can give him at this point, or we can give him at this point, is to have that percentage be doled out by virtue of the tax assessor's authority. So.
We'll leave it on consent.
Yes. The next one is consideration of a resolution in support of the city of Greenwood. They have submitted a request that we support them in their grant for CNG rail line. It really does not impact us directly, other than there's a possibility of a spur coming off Phoebe to come down with a bike trail down to Starkville, but it doesn't really affect us. But a resolution is kind of a easy thing for us to do to support that city. So consent for that
There's
one.
a lot of traction on that, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I
yes,
thought.
they are. There are problems with it, but yes, CNG has agreed to release the line.
Just a
so.
resolution, okay.
Okay. And the next one, we have a resolution recognizing and honoring football stars Willie Gay and A.J. Brown. And so wanted to do that in support of them. So,
Consent.
okay.
Amen.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that my favorite tweet that I have seen since the playoffs was the one that said that Mississippi State is tied for first with the most Super Bowl players with 4, and they go on down through the rest of them. And Watkins Dumas, former Alderman Jeremiah Dumas's son, tweeted that and said that Starkville High School is tied for 5th with 2 active players in the Super Bowl. So
That's all right.
That is way cool. It says a lot about our school district and our level of talent coming out of that.
Right.
Airport, we have approval of a lease agreement renewal. Mr. Huskisson, anything about that one? And Mr. Lincoln has now joined us, so anything about that we need to be considerate of other than in terms of that agreement?
Was that to me? No,
Yeah, I was
I'll
just
put
asking
that.
if you had any issues with that lease agreement?
No, and I'll follow up Mr. Lincoln as well.
Okay, all right, we can put that on consent. That's just a
Consent.
renewal. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Engineering, quote for materials to replace the signage along 182. Anything about that one, Mr.
Not unless there's questions.
Okay, all right.
Consent.
Consent for that. And then accepting the university action plan for safe streets and roads. This is the grant that I was notified about, so it's good news for us on that. So, and that is this the one we're sharing with Mississippi State? Yes, it is the one we're sharing with Mississippi State. We also, I talked with Orlando Trainer this morning, and he said that the county is interested in sharing the Spring Street TAP grant with us, so we can proceed with that when the time is right, like right now. Next one is the interlocal agreement with Mississippi State University and Oktibbeha County in the Spring Street. So that's that was part of that we had that discussion, and he confirmed their interest in participating with us, which is a good thing.
Consent.
Consent for that one?
Yes.
All right. We have claims docket. We will move past that to consideration of the municipal advisor agreement. Alderman Sistrunk or Ms. Harden, either one of you want to share a little bit of information on that at all?
I'll just say these are just addenda. My high school Latin teacher appreciates me getting my plurals right, to allow us to set up a custodial account and expand the services.
Both of them, right?
Okay. So they're just sort of boilerplate performance.
Okay. Consent for those? Okay. All right. Under HR, we've got hirings. Mr. Ashford, anything in particular? These are replacement, all replacement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Consent for those?
Yes,
We've
ma'am.
got accounting and finance, we've got sanitation worker, deputy court clerk, lieutenant for fire department, and then, let's see, we've got, what have we got? Firefighters, and engineering intern, and then certified police officer. So consent for all of those?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, excellent. IT, we've got a lease with Dell. Anything about that?
Just to let you know, this is really the same sort of deal we did with Dell about 6 years ago to refresh our data center. That equipment is now 6 years old and time to refresh, so we're just re-upping that. City Attorney Dell did not make any of our suggested changes, but this is critical infrastructure, which I believe we need to move forward with. It's also on state contract.
Okay, all right, consent for that?
Consent.
All righty. Under parks, we have acceptance of the lowest and best quotes for automated external defibrillators.
Consent.
Consent.
I'm sorry, we could hold that one off. They have not gotten a seventh one.
Oh.
The cover sheet said lowest of two, but you only sent in one, and I've asked Brandon for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We'll follow that one with consideration to approve the construction of the pool roof by Paul Davis.
Consent.
Consent for
Covered by
that.
insurance.
Yes.
That covered by insurance?
The pool roof is covered by insurance? How is the pool
The
roof?
pool building, the pool
Oh,
building.
building, oh, okay, okay. This says pool roof.
Well,
only.
it's.
Is it the entire
funded
thing?
out- It's gonna be funded out of
Is
that
the
insurance
wall- is the
settlement.
wall-
Well, then let's note this as pool building and roof, so that we've got it accurate on the agenda, please. So we'll change that at least to reflect the building and the roof. Consent for that one?
Consent.
Okay. Police, we've got TriStar muffler and brake, replacing a transmission. Consent for that?
Consent.
Code enforcement, all right, these are all calling for public hearings on 21-19-11 properties, 212 West Gillespie, 203 McKinley, 202 McKinley, and 725 South Jackson, all of which are in imminent need for that. Consent for those?
Consent.
Okay. Sanitation, consideration of a loan from city funds for the purchase of the knuckle boom loader, which is just a matter of how we're paying for it, and we're using our city funds to do
Consent.
that. Consent for that. Utilities, we have a 2-charge point DC fast charging station. Mr. Kemp, anything, these are gonna go with the these are gonna go with the public parking facility?
Yes, ma'am. This
off
is
of Lanigan, right?
the state has a grant that is paying for the 20% match of the project, and this is the MOA outlining our responsibilities
Okay.
for that funding.
Okay, consent for that one?
Consent.
Okay. Authorization to purchase pipe material for Santa Anita Drive water replacement.
Consent.
Okay. Regular cab in the amount of, and a crew cab. These are all that you have had to go out and hunt outside, right?
Get
Because
two
the state
quotes.
contract
Yes.
has not been available for these vehicles, so.
That's right.
Consent.
Okay, consent for those.
Consent.
Engineering agreement for Babylon Road sewer project. This is, while it's nearing its end, we needed to make sure we had papered it properly.
All right. Consent.
Consent for that one. And then the same thing is true in number 5, so consent for
Consent.
that one. And then we have a lowest quote for 2 30 HP temporary floating aerators for our wastewater treatment.
Consent.
And that's 36,000 each. Just the purchase of
36,000
those.
each.
Yes. So let's make sure that it's reflecting as each, okay, all right? And these are unfortunately not voluntary, for a way to put that, these are not some.
Discretionary.
Yeah, discretionary is the word I want, because we are in dire need, so. All right, and we have nothing for executive session, so, yes, thank you, everyone. A little bit long, but it was informative, so appreciate everyone, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, we will call ourselves adjourned. Mr. Hutchinson, thank you for being with us.
Yes, we'll see y'all next week.
All
Thank you.
right, thanks so much.